talk a little bit. This is Gordon, and I'm going to talk a little bit about lessons learned and some of the things that we felt were important early on in the process of 2011 when we decided to move in the direction of BYOD. We did bring together kind of a multidisciplinary group, and we had to do that fairly quickly. So we had it was pretty all-inclusive representation at the school level, members from instructional services department such as Diane and others, and then the IT department as well. And so we commenced quickly to developing a framework that would just really provide a roadmap. And this was new territory for us as a district, and so we wanted to kind of jump out in front and start to provide some guidance and some leadership to the schools. And so we came up with a framework. We developed, some forms that kind of explained what the BYOD initiative was and how it might be used, and then also included things like parent permission forms and just to make sure that the parents weren't taken by surprise. And so under that first heading of the importance of involving all stakeholders from the beginning, we can't underscore that enough, so that as much as possible you're getting input from all the different groups that might be affected, and certainly that input is invaluable. So I would say that's a big key into just developing a well-rounded process and making sure there's no real gaping holes. Part of that, by having representation from all the different groups, including the IT department, we made sure that we had adequate and a robust technology infrastructure to support what could, in our case, be with 180,000 students, what could be a real impact on the network. And so we wanted to make sure that we were ready to support that. And so that's a really important aspect of what we looked at. And then again, the processes and the framework that we developed. Again, a number of forms up front. We made sure one of the inputs that we received was to make sure that we had the forms in a number of different languages. And so we posted this information out on our public website, which again described the BYOD initiative. We provided information on the IT service catalog that we have internally, and then of course on the instructional services websites. We're just trying to get the information in as many different places as we could. Diane mentioned that she and I have been kind of hitting the circuit internally to FCPS. So as there are principals meetings or teachers or librarians, I think Diane's going to talk to a group of librarians. We're just trying to get the information out and realizing that, again, this represents a cultural change for our organization, and so it takes a long time to turn a big ship. And so we realized and recognized that it's going to take some while before folks are fully comfortable with that. And I think everyone needs to be patient as they jump into the process and realize that this is not going to happen overnight. Adoption of enterprise applications, which are device agnostic. Diane and the folks in instructional services came up with a great phrase, and I think it really helps, and that is that you're really focused on the content and not on the device. And I think that's been a great principle, and that's also been one of the things they've shared with teachers, so that there's not such a great fear that I've got to learn something about every potential device that might be brought into my classroom. And so there's much more of a focus on content as opposed to the device itself. And then lastly, then just a great deal of collaboration between the IT, the Information Technology Department, and the Instructional Services Department, and then bringing in school-based resources to those different venues so that we can develop a set of best practices. And again, what Diane said is so important, to make sure that when we've developed a great tool or we see something that's in use at one school, that they're willing to share that across the district, so that in some cases people are not having to just recreate the same exact content, but display it or give it out, disseminate it for their school. So we really believe in taking the best of the best that's out there and then one of the things that we've learned is when we jumped in, we were concerned about the whole issue of the devices being registered, and so we have a parent permission form where both the student and the parents are signing off and saying, look, we understand these are the things that we're accepting the responsibility for, and here are kind of the rules of the road that we're going to play by. And so that's a very necessary part, but one of the things that we found in terms of just practical implications is that registration process, we don't want that to be a deterrent from folks bringing the devices in, and then also for us being able to account, because a lot of times questions are asked either from the school board level or otherwise at the leadership team level. Well, how are we doing with this initiative? I mean, and if the devices aren't registered, then it's hard to give an accurate accounting. So one of the things that we've been struggling with and we're working towards is to streamline that registration process so that we are able to give an accurate picture of how many devices are being used at any given time, what types of devices those are, but not make it so onerous that it bogs down the whole system. And so we're looking at streamlining that registration process. We believe that it's an ongoing process, and it will continue to be. So we have regular meetings, and we continue to solicit input from other stakeholders. And so we have checkpoints where we're just making sure that we're not making decisions in the ivory tower in the central office that either have a negative impact or no impact in the instructional arena in the school level. And so we have representation from the school level as well as instructional services and information technology department on those meetings. There is, again, one of the things that we hear from teachers is the need to develop professional development tools for the teachers and to just help, again, kind of conquer the fears and make it so that it's not such a tall mountain to climb. So we're continuing to look at those resources as well. And then making sure that all of this is done, that we're always, keeping the parents in the loop and that they're aware from a communications standpoint how this might help their student, always keeping that as the end in mind of how this is impacting the teaching and learning. It's not just bringing the device so that the kids bring the device to school, but what's the instructional impact and how can they best be utilized in the instructional environment. And then centrally, there's always an emphasis on looking at other low-cost options and how to increase student access, conquer the digital divide, making sure that there is access for devices for personal use at home as well as at school. So it's a lot. Obviously, it's kind of a new arena, and it definitely represents a change in culture. And so I think we're all fully committed and on board to that, but it's an ongoing process. Okay.
Thank you, Gordon, so much. With regards to your last point about the low-cost options, I remember when I was in Fairfax, I think in September, in one of your media centers, and I saw it looked like a big box of blackberries, and I asked what was going on with this big box of blackberries in this media center, and one of your district leaders shared that they were going to repurpose those blackberries that administrators had been using for use for BYOD in the schools. And I thought, what a fantastic idea. So really appreciate you and Diane sharing your insights about BYOD in a very large district. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Marcy, to introduce the next district.
Thank you, Len. So our next district is the Westfield Washington Schools in Indiana. I had the pleasure of meeting Dave in Chicago in October, and I've learned a lot about their many innovative learning programs, including their BYOD program. Mark Keene is their very supportive superintendent, but for today, Dave Mundy is here. He's Assistant Superintendent for Learning Systems, and Dan Britta, the Systems Integration Director. And I will just hand over to Dave, to begin.
Thank you, Marcy. We appreciate that. A lot of things you're going to hear from us are very similar to the same things you hear from Fairfax. One thing we found through all these presentations we've listened to and been fortunate to be a part of is, in every experience you have, you learn something new. I already wrote down 2 or 3 different notes from just Fairfax's presentation. Some of the things that we've tried to look at in our BYOD program is we keep the philosophy that we want students to have their own devices, and that's a big deal to us, and why we have not only the financial aspect that it's hard to promote as a school district and keep that going, but we're big believers that kids are used to using their own devices. They're much quicker, they're much faster, they're much more efficient than they are when sometimes you hand them one that's a foreign product in their hands. So that's how we came about, and the big belief that we go with own your own device, and so far it's gone great for us in that aspect. Mind you, we do provide them, though, for the younger students, but this is mainly for our 7 through 12 kiddos in the district. We also, you see their kind of philosophies we follow, and no matter what we do, we really want to make sure that technology is not just, we do not have technology for technology's sake. You'll hear us say that a lot around here. If we're going to put technology in a classroom, we want it so that it serves and helps support the stuff the students already know, and it adds to the student achievement throughout the district. We do have pockets where we don't try to force technology into a classroom. Finite math, for example, is a classroom that sometimes technology doesn't fit real well into. We use it as it's seen fit by the teacher and the students in those courses. Common Core has really helped us in integrating technology into the district as well, because the focus on the in-depth learning really goes right along with using technology in the classroom. We also think, too, that we know that the secondary levels or the collegiate level are going more to BYOD programs and more access to technology, so we want to make sure our students are ready for that, as they move on to the next level and leave us here in Westfield. Kind of go back a little bit where we've been. We began piloting a couple of years back. That pilot group, if I could ask for a better experience, I don't think we could have gotten one. It really got off the ground well. We do, and I think I mentioned this in here later as well, we gave the students an option of either bringing their own or renting one from the district. I think of a total of about 400 kids that were in the pilot program. We rented about 6 total. So really the concern that not enough kids would have their own to bring it was not something that came to fruition once we started using them in the classroom. To be doing it in smaller groups, and in Westfield, we're very big on pilot groups before we jump wholeheartedly into a program, because it really lets us help learn where our errors are and what we need to do better. But our teachers were in that group, really did a fantastic job of creating some digital curriculum and really focused on project-based learning in their classroom. Hence, there was a much bigger reason for using the technology while they were in there. One thing on the bottom there, a piece of advice that we did as we were putting our program together, we spent a lot of time traveling, visiting, and seeing every school, as many as we could in the state of Indiana, and some even across the border into Ohio, that we already had some of these programs off the ground, and we learned a lot from watching others on how it would work for us and how it would fit into what we needed to do in Westfield schools. From that and those tours, one of the things we learned is we really, as Fairfax mentioned too, had developed an in-depth Web 2.0 toolbox. We really wanted to make sure that as teachers asked questions, we had different ways to explain to them. Currently, we do webinars on a whole bunch of different topics. We record those and keep those available for several different schools to use whenever they see fit. That comes into play a lot, especially when a teacher's trying to learn how to do a flipped classroom and they want to go back, and maybe they're not the most technology savvy teacher, but when they know that they can spend their own time at their own pace watching the webinar, learning how to do it, that's really become beneficial to us. We're also, over the summer, we offered numerous, I think we're at 20 plus trainings over the summer on different topics, and we're just getting ready to launch our before school, after school kind of small coffee talks, if you will, where we're just going to have 20-minute tutorials on different subjects that teachers can come learn more about.